Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and I am here with Rodney Top 8 Thompson. We got Rodney Top 8 Thompson here because...
Live
via satellite. Because he believes that the reserved list, it has to be reprinted. It has to be at some point or another. But you have some conditions on what you mean by the reserved list.
Well, it's not that it has to be. It's Rosewater has said that at some point they will, but it'll probably be signaling the end of the game, right? And they're wanting to get these cards out to people that want to, have these cards infinitum or whatever, right? So it's not that they will never reprint these cards. They've established that at some point they will. That is a company policy that they've taken.
But like if the game was almost dead.
They have said they would do it, and it would probably mean the game is almost dead, is what they said. But the important thing is that they've established there is a precedent. They said we will do it at some point. It's not like they've said we double dog dare, swear to God, cross our heart, and hope to die. We're never going to print these cards. They have said we will print these cards. Okay, so there is that, right? It's not that they're saying they're never going to do it. They're saying we won't do it, and it'll probably not be for a long time, and it will probably be close to the end of the game of Magic. But they have said that they're going to do it. That's what's important.
So the positive side is that if the game is going to be dead and the cards are going to be worthless anyway at that point, that reprinting them won't even hurt their value.
No, but I was more talking about, like, there's a lot, and myself included, there's a lot of armchair lawyers on the internet. Oh, they can't do this. They have a legally binding contract agreement. Yeah. Right? But it's absolute utter nonsense. First of all, we need to establish that they have a company policy that says they won't do it, but they've also established a company policy that says we might do it at some point in the future. We probably will.
Right? So two conflicting policies.
Two conflicting policies. So they're right there. Okay, so this is your official policy, but this is also your official policy. As soon as things are muddy in legal waters, it's like, well, we can't sue.
Sure,
right?
sure. Well, and how about for the people who don't know about the legal obligation on Wizards of the Coast? Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, first of all, I'm of the opinion that there is no legal obligation. Company policy and contract are not the same thing, right? A number of things, like a lot of words things that get thrown around is that there's promissory estoppel, which I don't believe, because I don't, as I've said, I don't think Wizards has taken a position that you could legally back up on the reserve list. They have a company policy to not reprint them, but they haven't. But they also, as I said, have a policy that they will reprint them at some point. So you can't say that they have definitively given. Do you know what estoppel is? Or
for people, well, there's probably a lot of people who have no idea what this is.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not just talking to you. When you promissory estoppel is in civil, and I'm not a lawyer again. In civil cases, is when somebody's behavior or what somebody has said has caused you to make a decision as to how they would proceed. For example, in lawyers, in insurance, right? If an insurance adjuster comes in and they're looking around the house and they're like, oh yeah, I can definitely see that this damage was caused by fire. Okay. Oh, great. You've shown that the insurance company's position is that the damage has been caused by fire. Now, 4 months from now, that company is stopped, right, from going back on their word and saying, no, we change. We don't think the damage was caused by fire anymore, right? So I don't know about in other jurisdictions, but here, when you start a claim that may be sort of a little bit. They're unsure of their position on it, they'll get you to sign something that says, in no way are you to interpret anything we say as us committing ourselves to a position to protect themselves when you're dealing with MPI, to protect themselves from a possible promissory estoppel case. Now, with that said, I don't know why people think that they have any sort of agreement with Wizards. It would be very difficult to prove that you purchased those cards. Number one, it would have to be before the reserve list went into place, because you would have had to purchase them and open them from a pack, and you would also need the receipt showing that. Mm-hmm. Because you can't, if you've purchased them on the secondary market after the fact, right? You've now established that your concern is with their secondary value, not with the promise of what Wizards has said. You're not concerned with collecting them, right, forever, because that's what the purpose of the reserve list is. It's for you to know that you can collect these cards, right? And there's never going to be another one reprinted. Not that these cards are going to be worth $700 fucking dollars for an Underground Sea, right? They never said that.
Well, right? But is that not at least very strongly implied? It was when they mass reprinted these cards because they were afraid that there was going to be a bubble, that these cards were going to be too high. Then they mass reprinted them, and then everyone got upset because the money that they spent on these cards turned to dust. Mm-hmm. So so they said we're gonna have. That's when they imposed this. Okay,
so
list.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that Wizards is of the opinion that these cards have secondary market value?
Probably, yes.
I would get them to commit to that position. They will never commit to that
position.
They
may not be able to commit to the position. They may not say it, but it's pretty strongly implied. Oh, well. There's a lot of things you may not be able to get them to actually say.
Yeah, but if they admit, right? So this is the thing. If it comes to some sort of civil disagreement, mm-hmm. right? And there is, we can discuss why I think it's laughable that it would ever happen later on. But if it comes to some sort of point where there's a civil disagreement, Wizards will be, and Hasbro will be, throwing a lot of money to prevent any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Any sort of precedent being set. Because for there to be a successful reserve list civil suit, people need to establish that these cards have secondary market value, right? Because that's sure. That's, and I agree with you, pragmatically speaking.
Yeah.
That absolutely, these cards have secondary market value. There's no doubt about it. But
look at Haruria's buying them for $600 US.
But if that is a legal position and an objective truth that has to be taken by both sides, we have now just thrown Wizards into a whole realm of gambling legislation.
Yeah, which right? they're trying to separate themselves from.
Right, exactly. And just in the EU, they found that loot crates are probably considered a form of gambling. Right, so they need to abide by a whole bunch of different gambling legislation now.
Yeah, but how is loot crating different? I don't see the connection between loot crates and the reserve list cards. Because loot crates,
I'm not talking about loot crates and reserve list. I'm talking about loot crates and opening boosters.
Okay, that's the same.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, and one.
Okay, I see the parallel now. Yeah.
Right. So there. This is totally separate from the reserve list. This is another really big, bad legal thing that they would fight tooth and nail against. Right. Because they would get hooped on both sides. And keep in mind, this is okay. Let's for a minute. Let's pretend that they've abolished the reserve list.
Okay.
The neckbeards and the
we're now in a world. There's no reserve list. Yeah. Congratulations, you can play Legacy all over again.
All right, yeah.
And Vintage.
You can go out and buy these $50 boosters, in which 1 in 3 has a dual land in. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Anyways, and the neckbeards and the Rudies of the world are going crazy because all of their cards are now. Not all of them, but the white border duels, City of Traders, the stuff that really only has inherent value because of its playability and not its collectability, is going down. and they've banded together and they've convinced the lawyer to take their case pro bono, which is, I mean, again, another huge hurdle.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
These neckbeards don't have any money left. All their money was tied up in reserve list cards, which are now worthless. Right?
No, maybe not worthless. They got to be worth something.
In the lawyer world, they're worthless.
Okay, in the world. Okay. You're fighting over this paper?
Yeah,
what are you
exactly.
doing?
Yeah, how much can I sell this paper for? $30? Get out of here! You're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Anyways, they've convinced some lawyer to take their case pro bono, and they're going to go and round up this huge civil suit. This whole time, Wizards is functionally printing money for their lawyer machine.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Right? They're printing these. I think $50 is not unreasonable for a booster with $200 cards in it regularly. Right? So they're printing money hand over fist, and their legal coffers are getting more and more full.
Yeah. So if anyone didn't missed it, Rodney's proposing that there's going to be like a return to revised set that they're going to sell at $50 a booster. And the profits off of this will help fight off any lawyers that will come get Wizards of the Coast.
Right. So, they fight, and I mean, most of the civil suits, they never, assuming that a civil suit is possible, I don't think it is, for a number of reasons we'll discuss after this, but assuming that the civil case gets to, what's the word? I can't remember when the lawyers are like, hey, let's hash it out.
Yeah.
Something with an A. Whatever. The lawyers are doing their lawyer thing.
Yeah, okay.
The vast majority of them get negotiated out. Like, hey, we'll give you guys $1 billion, and you can distribute that to all of your clients equally, and they'll all get $50 or whatever it is. Right? It happens all the time with big civil suits. So all of that, I don't think is because Wizards is just going to be, like I said, printing money the whole time. They're just printing money, right? And they have good legal reasons why they can't let them lose that case. Because, like I said, now suddenly they're falling under gambling legislation everywhere in the United States. All of this is completely forgetting that there's a world outside the United States.
Sure.
In Canada, I don't think anybody's suing. In the EU, I would be surprised if anybody could sue. Right? In Asia, I don't think that's happening. Like they're really civil case heavy and are happy in the United States.
Right.
Right? And I think that is the only place where people... I sue you.
Yeah. I'm going to sue you for suing me.
I'm sorry. Did somebody say that we were suing people? Yeah. I want to get in on this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't think that there's really much to go. And I mean, I thought about it a lot, obviously, and I've come to the conclusion that, legal arguments aside, they're just watching the cards go up in price and they're laughing, right? Because all it's doing is meaning that some indiscriminate point down the road, they're going to be able to print these booster packs for an even higher MSRP. Right? If you know that like I said, 1 in 3 packs has a $200 dual land in, you can sell $50 boosters. Right?
Yeah, you could, but why would Wizards want to shake consumer confidence in their company?
What consumer confidence?
Well, I mean, they make this promise, and I'm certain that there's a lot of Commander players who have at least dumped, a decent chunk of money on dual lands.
And this is a legitimate question. This is an honest to goodness question. How many? If you were to select 10 random Magic players, how many of them do you think have even heard of the reserve list?
10 random Magic players, or 10 random, or the 20% that go to local game stores?
That's why I'm saying that. You know the answer to that question already. Well, 10 random players. So you've already cut off 80% of your base. Because they just go to Walmart and they buy a pack of Magic. And they play tabletop Magic with their buddies on Friday night. right? That makes up somewhere between 70 and 80% of the Magic player base.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're looking at say 20 to 30% of competitive Magic players, of which they're roughly divided on whether the reserve list is a good thing or a bad thing. I would say even in favor. Let's say that there's 10% of people that are opposed to the Magic. Like, that's really liberal, but 10% of Magic players are opposed to the reserve list being banned or unbanned, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Reneged on. You have now made 90% of your player base happy by alienating 10%. You've taken marketing classes. You've taken
but actually
classes,
this would hurt them a lot in terms of marketing. Like, you could, because people could always say, do you remember that time that they promised never to reprint the reserve list cards? Well, we can't believe that at all anymore.
Wait a minute. Is there people that actually believe Wizards? Like, is there some sort of, are we living in some sort of fantasy land where companies haven't gone back on their word countless times throughout history?
No, I mean, this might be true, but it's still not good.
No, hey, I'm not saying that it is. I believe companies should be completely ethical and honest, but they're not. They're just not. I'm sorry. This is reality, not Rainbow Land. Right? Companies have gone. If there are people out there that believe companies don't go back on their word, then you are very happily ignorant, and I am jealous. But this is this is the reality, right? If you ever, you can't say, well, they'll never go back on their word. They have.
So, like, what?
They have. You know what, John? Just hold on a second, John. John, expeditions are going to be in every set. No, they're not. Okay? You know what? We're going to go to a 2-block cycle. No, we're not.
No,
you know
but they never promised any of these things.
They did.
They just say they're going to do it. They didn't. Oh. They didn't repeat over and over and over again. We promise. This is a promise. We're keeping our promise. They just say we're dropping Modern. They never said we promise we're never bringing Modern back to the Pro Tour.
And are they doing that with the reserve list? Because
yes, they are doing.
No, they're not. John.
Rosewater repeats the word promise. No, he doesn't. It is a promise.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
He says I can't talk about the reserve list.
No, he talks, and he says this is a promise. He uses the word promise, Rodney. We can go. I'll show you the links.
Okay.
And he said, and he did say something recently on Tumblr, trying to say the difference between what Wizards does in one way and what they did with the reserve list. They're using the word promise here. They're making this is a special case, and they're trying to keep a promise.
Yeah, sure. They're trying to. This is.
But it's not like the expeditions. It's not like the 2-block cycle, and it's not like bringing Modern back to the Pro Tour.
It's not like any.
And I think he specifically made this article to show the exception between the reserves list and those other things. Sure.
I have seen very minimal discussion from actual Wizards. Other than we don't talk about the reserve list, and this is our reprint policy. But anyway, whatever. What were we talking about? I lost my train of thought.
Well, you're trying to establish that they've gone back on a lot of their ideas. And you're trying to...
companies have broken promises numerous times throughout history. That I don't think I need to establish. And even Wizards has broken their promise numerous times. So it's not like... I don't see it as any different.
Okay.
But whatever. I don't get to make the decisions, unfortunately, because if I did, they would have been in 20... There would have been reserve list cards in 25th anniversary. There would have been reserve list cards in... Iconic Masters. There would have been reserve list cards in Eternal Masters, right? And I wouldn't have probably printed a second or a third Modern Masters. I probably would have done a Vintage Masters, maybe, right? But
personally, I think their original reserve list policy of creating special promos of cards was fine. and they shouldn't have gone back on that.
No, I know, right? I don't know. And again,
that was a great policy.
Yeah, like we can print Judge promos, or we can print
promo Black Lotus.
Something, right?
Okay, so what are other factors that you think could lead to the reserved list getting reprinted? Because in private you talk about the history of the reserved list and how they've changed it over time.
Yeah, they've taken cards off it.
Yeah, right.
And so there is precedent that they've changed the reserve list.
Sure.
And after they've said come right out and said this is the last time we'll change it, but it's always the last time you do anything until you don't, right?
Right.
Yeah, but it's hard to argue that there isn't a case that they have done those things when they objectively have, right? Sure. Now maybe they've said we won't, but they also said we won't before.
Okay.
Right. So I don't buy the argument that there isn't a stopped position that they have committed themselves to. As I said, Rosewater, clear as day, has said we will reprint these cards at some point, and it'll probably be the end of the game, right? Just because 20, 30 years from now, people will want a Black Lotus. If they don't reprint them, as they are choosing not to, it largely won't matter because no one will want to play Legacy anymore. Just like lots of people will want to play Legacy, just like they want to play Vintage, but they won't be able to, right? It'll be limited to the online world, where they can reprint the cards that people need. So. I think at that point, another thing we talked about is when EDH started up, they banned all of the power, not because it was inherently broken.
Banned a bunch of cards. Because...
when they started EDH, they're like, we can't have Moxes because not because they're too good, because nothing is too good in EDH, right? Sure. They have.
Well, I don't know that.
Soul Ring, for God's sakes.
Moxes are still pretty good.
They only ban cards. Yeah, Moxes are very good, but would you rather see a Mox or a Soul Ring in your opening hand? If in Cube, what do you take? I take Soul Ring every time.
You take Soul Ring in a mono red deck that can't even use the mana.
Well, what good is it? What good is a Mox Sapphire in a mono red deck?
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but. Soul Ring is unquestionably
Soul Ring is very powerful.
Yeah,
Legacy banned.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's fine in EDH, right? It's not overly. They ban it in. I
have no idea. EDH players, let us know if this thing is busted as hell.
It is. It's very good, but they ban it in heads up because if one person draws it, they're just going to win the game, right? Yeah. But in tabletop four-player commander, it's generally fine because there's three other people like, oh man, that jerk off's got a Soul Ring, let's get him, right? And I would argue that the Moxes are probably similar in four-player competitive. I don't know if they're banned in heads up either, but is your window open?
No.
No?
Nothing.
Are they like doing construction or something?
Maybe near you.
Oh, maybe. I don't think so. But anyway, whatever. But they banned the Moxes and the Lotus and stuff because it was too expensive. Right?
Right.
So, and we figured it out. You remember the other day when we were in the car that when they said, wow, this card is too expensive, and they banned the Moxes, Underground Sea is now worth more than that.
Yeah, than the Moxes at the time.
That the Moxes were at the time. So, in the interest of consistency, because apparently we love consistency.
Yeah.
We don't like it when people go back on their promise. They should ban the duels from EDH.
Well, I mean, again, this wasn't really a promise based on. I don't know what they're committed to in EDH. I have no idea what the EDH.
No, they're nothing.
Yeah, but it might be institutionalized at this point. You know,
of course it is.
It's just part of the format, and if you got in when it was cheap or cheap enough or affordable, then congratulations,
then
you
good
get
for
to play
you.
with duels.
If you've got a line to the Chinese counterfeits that are nearly indistinguishable,
yeah,
good for you.
Well, I mean, that's also legal in EDH. You can, I mean, so long as your play group doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly. So, if I played EDH and I had an EDH deck, I wouldn't be buying legitimate cards for it. That's crazy.
And that's another point, like Patrick Sullivan just brought up, like reprinting the reserved list cards more or less only influences legacy tournament Magic.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Yeah.
But aside from that, you can sanction proxy.
Huh? Yeah, as I said, they don't even need to reprint them all. Just what was it, the 13 or the 15 cards?
Oh, the important cards.
Yeah,
yeah. For Rodney, like the reserved list is very narrow. It's just the lands, Lion's Eye Diamond, and City of Traders. I think that's Cradle. It, man. Guy's Cradle.
Yeah. Like, I can't think. I think that's 13 cards. Is there any? Oh, Tabernacle. That's another one.
Oh, you want to put that one on now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put Tabernacle in there.
When it gets to $1,000, it's on Rodney's list.
These are all lands. No, because it's a necessary card that is difficult to reprint, right? And it's a land, right? Like I said, the lands. As I said before, the lands are unique. They have effects.
Tabernacle doesn't even add mana.
So what? It's a land. It can get tutored out by lands. The deck
0 mana enchantment.
Yeah, exactly. 0 mana enchantment that has hexproof from disenchant effects.
Yeah.
What? And can be targeted by Wasteland.
Yeah.
But the land. I mean, I don't think I need to explain to Magic players why the lands are different than the spells, the creatures, the enchantments, the artifacts, everything else, right? What do you do when you pick up your hand? Oh, lands and spells. We're good, right? It's not spells and spells. It's not artifacts and spells. It's not creatures and spells. It's lands and spells. There's two different types of game pieces: lands and everything else, right? And I'm calling the Lion's Eye Diamond a land in a sense, right? It makes mana, right?
Yeah. Specifically for the Storm players.
Mm-hmm. Now getting to, so long story short, to establish, I don't think there's any serious legal arguments for why Wizards doesn't reprint the reserve list. I think that it's too muddy, certainly.
Okay.
But keeping in mind they're printing money the whole time. And also, I think they're growing their reprint equity. That's all they're doing. Right? And someday they can be like, boom, here's $80 packs of Vintage Masters. Boom, here's $50 packs of Legacy Masters. Whatever it might be, right?
Can people afford them?
If you know that there's going to be 1 in 3 packs are going to have a $150 duel in or a $200 duel in, are you really affording them or are you gambling? Can people, here's a scratch and win ticket. Could I afford this scratch and win ticket?
No, but the thing is,
probably not.
It's I mean, I don't know where this figure got thrown around, but people have they can spend about $2,000 on a deck per year, something like that.
Okay.
That's how much money they have. So how many boosters can they buy? Or are they just going to buy 1 or 2 boosters a year? How much disposable income do they have?
I think, case in point, the market is supporting a lot higher than we thought it could.
Well, but right? The average consumer might not be supporting that. It could be just pure speculation. Well, I don't know, because I forgot about EDH, and EDH could be supporting, the rise of the dual lands, because it's not just.
I think EDH is probably the primary reason why they are. I think that's why they're drying up. Because people are jamming volcanic islands into their Izzet.
And we might be in a spot where people are seeing, the prices are now going stupid, so we have to buy in right now before it's too late.
Yeah, FOMO, fear of missing out. It's called
FOMO.
Even because nobody, I don't know. I mean, whoever's watching out there, speak up. I'm sure you have super healthy legacy tournaments on the East Coast and in the Pacific Northwest, maybe in some places in Europe, but I don't play Legacy outside of GPs. I don't even do that anymore because I sold all my Legacy cards.
Right.
right?
Disclaimer: Rodney Top 8 Thompson doesn't have any reserved list cards. I own many reserved list cards.
I sold all my duos in my City of Traders. When was it? Like last summer?
Yeah, last summer.
Last summer when I was like, this is stupid. I have like thousands of dollars in cards that I never play. And sold them all, and I traded into expeditions. And I've got like infinite expeditions now.
Well, I don't know if reprinting the reserved list cards for $80 boosters seems like a sort of a cheap money grab. And it's also hard to tell how the market will react. I don't want to say that the price of the duels will collapse, because these are really macroeconomic factors that are really unpredictable. It's anyone can say in economics, oh, this for sure is going to happen with supply and demand. To be honest, it's really unpredictable to know what would happen.
There's a couple things in economics that we can say won't happen. And that is the trickle-down economics won't work. We've established that, like, beyond any reasonable doubt. But, I mean, that has nothing to do with what we're discussing. But just anyone out there that believes in trickle-down economics, you're wrong. It doesn't work. And we've established that. Let's move on.
Rodney Top 8 Thompson. But I would think that they should be focusing on innovation into the future of Magic. And I also don't know why printing them... Actually, personally, I think that the future Magic is going to go very digital. I think paper Magic is, like, competitive paper Magic is... It's still going to be a thing. They're not going to, like, abandon this, but it's not going to be as important competitively.
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised that they don't go digitally already, like, for the Pro Tour and stuff.
I'm not sure. Well, I have no idea. Probably going into the future with MTG Arena, we might see this happen.
Yeah,
Magic
maybe.
the Gathering Online might not be robust enough for it. But well, I mean, aside from the game dying, like what factors would encourage them to reprint the reserved list just arbitrarily?
A couple bad sets in a row. I was actually I was cheering for Dominaria to be a bad set, not because I want bad cards, but because I was looking at what had happened, and they had Iconic Masters, they had 25th Anniversary Masters, and they hadn't sold very well. And the more sets in a row they have that don't sell very well, the more likely it is they're going to hit the nuclear button and be like, we need to do something.
Oh yeah, okay,
right?
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously we know now that Dominaria has been a big hit.
Right.
Lots of people love it, and there's a lot of cards in there that people are really having fun with. So the reserve list is here for another couple of years.
Right.
But they haven't announced any more Masters product, have they?
No. It's over.
That's weird.
Tap, they've turned the tap off on Masters sets.
They're not coming anymore?
Not for now. There's nothing announced.
Okay, but they haven't said there's no more coming. They just haven't announced any more sets.
I don't know. I don't actually know what the position on the Master sets are. I don't know if they're going to be theme sets or whatever, but like, there's no specialty set announced or in the works beyond.
Okay.
Which is why, like, a bunch of, as far as I understand, which is why all the modern cards spiked. They M25. Okay, that's it for now. Okay, we got to buy up all the cards because there's not going to be any serious reprints for any foreseeable future.
Yeah. The only reason I want to talk about it is because I said we'd talk about it later on. But like, let's rewind about 20 minutes or half an hour, however long it's been, to where I said that they have convinced a lawyer to take their case pro bono.
Okay.
The neckbeards and neckbeards and the Rudies have rounded, all the American neckbeards and Rudies have rounded themselves up. And full disclosure, I am a neckbeard. So
yeah.
You neckbeards can't get mad at me calling you a neckbeard. I am a neckbeard. But they've got a lawyer to take their case pro bono, and they're going to go and arbitrate it. That was the word I was looking for, arbitrate.
Okay.
All right, so they go, and the first thing they need to establish is that there was promissory estoppel, which we touched on, and it might be really difficult to convince a judge or a jury, depending on how it's heard. The next thing that they need to establish is that these cards have secondary market value, which Wizards will fight them on again.
Okay.
Right? And say they win that. I don't think that would be a hard argument to win. The third thing they got to establish is that the value of these cards is determined by anything other than their is determined by their collectability and not their playability. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, look at Tarmogoyf, you know. Sure, it's gone down, but it's gone down 75% to 75% of what it was.
Oh no,
it's like $100.
No, it's gone down. Well, if it's $100 right now, then it's gone down 50%.
It was $150 when I got mine.
Wait, it was $200 at its peak.
Was it $200 at one point?
It was a stupid amount of money.
Okay. All right. Well, Tarmogoyf's not
maybe it was $150. Maybe I'm thinking of
how much has Cryptic Command gone down? It was $40 at one point, right?
No, it was 50.
And it was 20.
It might have been 50 at one point. No, I don't know if it went. It might have went as low as 20. I don't know where it sits right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. Like, but my point is that these cards' values aren't solely dictated on their reprinted, right? It's not like they reprinted Tarmogoyf and Mythic and it's a $5 card, right? Mm-hmm. It's tanked. Like, there is some tie on its collectability, and Wizards has shown that they can reprint cards without tanking the value, right? These cards still have value to them.
Yeah, depending on how much supply they pump into the economy.
They're not stupid. Even though they can't legally subscribe to the position, they understand that the secondary market has value.
Actually, Tarmogoyf's value went up the first time it got reprinted.
Exactly. Well, boom, there you go. The fourth thing they need to establish is that they had an agreement with Wizards, and they intended to cause harm to them when they went around that agreement. That's going to be really hard. And the fourth thing they need to prove is how much damage Wizards did to them. Right? So you're going to need to have some sort of non-arbitrary point of reference. How much is this Black Lotus worth? Well, the best thing to show how much this Black Lotus is worth, like if you buy a car or something, the best thing you can say when you go to an insurance agent is like, this car is worth $5,000. How do you know? 2 weeks ago, here's my bill of sale for $5,000. Right? As soon as you have, as soon as you're looking at Craigslist or eBay and trying to, figure out, it gets really, really difficult. People find cases that support their cause. All right, so the best thing to do is have a point of reference. So they need to have an established point of reference for how much these cards were worth,
right,
before they reneged on the reserve list. I don't know how you're going to go about doing that. And if they can't do any of these things, their lawsuit falls flat on its face. And Wizards is going to fight every single one of them tooth and nail, right? So they don't just have to win one. It's not as simple as reserve list cards shouldn't have been reprinted. Give me money. I win promissory estoppel, right? There's a lot of steps to it. It would take years. And they would have to be extremely lucky and extremely successful.
And it'd be very expensive, too.
It would be astronomically expensive. Right? And I don't see a lawyer taking this pro bono, and I don't see anybody funding it. Right? It would be astronomically expensive.
Well,
and they would have.
In terms of funding, it's possible all local game stores around the world could chip in $5,000 to support.
You ask any local game store. And Star City Games has gone on record. Channel Fireball has gone on record, and I know I've talked to Rich about this on numerous. Rich from Fusion Gaming, who's our local, our big local game store here, about this numerous times, and they all agree on one thing: fuck the reserve list, man. They don't want it. They get to sell packs with reserve list cards in, and they're selling $10, $20 Badlands instead of one $200 Badland.
Right, yeah. It's harder to move reserve list cards.
Exactly. Way harder to remove reserve list cards, especially when there's no one that wants to play with them, because as we know, contrary to what some people would have you believe, it's not collectability that's driving these prices, it's playability, right? There's a reason why Badlands is only $200 and Underground Sea is $600. and that's because
Blue's the
Underground
best
Seas
color.
is the best. Blue-black is probably the best color in Legacy, right? You can't cast Daze off of Badlands. Right?
Sorry, Grixis Delver. You can't cast Daze
can't.
off of Badlands.
Yeah, but... So they not only need to have a lot of, like, for any sort of successful legal thing, they need to have a number of things go their way very luckily, and nothing go against their way. And and it is possible that Wizards' legal team has looked at this and said, "What's the point? Right? You guys are making money already. You don't need to expose yourself to any unnecessary risk," because that's what lawyers do.
Sure.
They tell you don't expose yourself to any unnecessary risk. But if that risk becomes necessary, and this is what I was talking about earlier, if they have 4 or 5 bad sets in a row where they don't, suddenly they're not making money, and suddenly the shareholders are rattling the door, "Why are my dividends lower?" and they need something to turn it around. Now that risk becomes necessary.
Right.
And I think there's more likelihood that they will do it. Because promises aren't what drives businesses. Businesses don't wake up in the morning and say, it is a good day to be a business. They are completely amoral entities driven solely by greed and hunger for more money. That's all they do. They consume money.
Yeah.
Right? They make money and consume it. Right? So the Wizards as a company doesn't care about its promise. It can't. It doesn't have a heart, right? There might be individuals like Mark Rosewater that care about his promise because that means something to him, but it doesn't mean anything to Wizards. It doesn't mean anything to Hasbro. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean anything to any of their other future parent companies. And I tell you one thing, it certainly doesn't mean anything to their shareholders if it means that their shareholders are getting less money, right? The shareholders don't own shares in Hasbro because Hasbro makes nice promises. They own shares in Hasbro because they make money, right? So
now, Wizards, you go out and make that money for us.
Exactly. That's it. Go out and make that money, and they're doing it. They're printing money hand over fist, generally speaking. But a couple bad sets, and that could all turn around. So that's my feelings on the matter. I don't think it has anything to do with promises, and everything to do with unnecessary risk and making money. That's why there's no reserve list. And the day will come when they're like, the risk has now become necessary and we need more money. So,
or the reward is greater than the risk.
The reward is greater than any potential risk multiplied by the chance of incurring said risk. I mean, like I said, I don't have any way of knowing, but I think it's already at that point. But they can do whatever they want, I suppose. But they've killed Paper Legacy, just like they killed Paper Vintage. So,
well, that's why they killed the reserved list. Eventually, they saw it coming. They made Modern.
Yeah, what they should have done, if I was Wizards, I wouldn't have had it been Legacy, Modern, and Standard. I would have had it been Legacy. I would have had it been Standard, Modern, and Pauper. That's what I would have done.
It's probably harder for them to make money off of Pauper. I don't know what the arguments are on Pauper, but it's very hard to monetize Pauper. I mean, it's all commons, right?
You know what? But this is, I think this Pro Tour is putting Legacy on this Pro Tour is fan service. It's difficult for them to make money from Legacy as it is. It's difficult to make money from Pauper. It's impossible to make money from Legacy because they don't reprint Legacy cards.
Oh, but right? I don't think they're trying to make money off of Legacy.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think this is fan service.
That may not be entirely true. They still make Master sets and they put Legacy cards in there. They reprinted Jace a billion times.
Yeah. Well, Jace is Modern Legal now, John.
Jace is Modern Legal now.
Even though
it wasn't always Modern Legal.
Yeah, even though nobody's playing him, he is Modern Legal. How wrong were we about that, eh? Yeah. Whatever.
Well, okay.
I don't know. Ask if you got questions. Ask them in the comments down there.
Yeah, Rodney Top 8 Thompson is waiting for you.
Absolutely, I'll do my best to respond. maybe we can in a couple of weeks we can round up a couple of the top level comments and touch on it a bit more.
Oh, we're gonna have other topics to talk about, or maybe we'll have more. Yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You wanna discuss the oppression of the working class under capitalism, or
well, maybe that for another channel. Oppression, good. Go oppression.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
right.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, as usual, you let us know in the comments section below how much you like this discussion, how much you love Rodney Top 8 Thompson. So this has been Nikachu and Rodney Top 8 Thompson.
Stroke that ego.
Yeah. We're talking about the reserved list in Magic.